Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live video cast where my awesome co host, epic fantasy author Richard H. Stevens, and I speak with people from all walks of the publishing industry. So, Lurking for Legends is a live interactive broadcast, and we encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guests or even make comments on what you hear in the show. Tonight, we have sci fi and fantasy author V.S. Holmes. Welcome, V. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you. And you have a number of books out. You have a couple of different series. One is fantasy and one is more science fiction. And they are both, neither of them is just two books. One of them is 4 books. One of them is, I believe, supposed to be 6 books long. Yep. So why don't we start with the complete, I believe it's a complete series, the fantasy series. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was actually my debut novel was Smoke and Rain, which is in the Blood of Titans world. And it's epic fantasy, second world fantasy, and it follows these 3 people who are caught in the crossfire of a war between the gods and then the creatures that created the gods, and sort of delves into a little bit more of the psychological aspects of war and faith and all the things that come with that, and also what happens when heroes aren't so heroic. I really enjoy exploring that sort of thing, and the whole never meet your heroes stuff. I like going into that, but with the more epic fantasy style heroes that we usually see.
I love that, and I love dark stuff. Anything that's on the darker side, anything that deals with true psychology, and it's very realistic, is so enjoyable to me. Don't laugh, Richard. He's muted.
You're muted. Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, no, I typed in for you hi, and then you typed in hi. I was just laughing at what happened in the comments there because it's on me tonight that if I type in, it's going to come in as you. So maybe I can do something fun with that.
You're just talking to yourself.
Yeah, right. And then there's the Nel Bently Star's Edge series, which is not yet complete and is still ongoing. And there is a book release coming up very soon. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so that was sort of it started out as kind of a palate cleanser because those big dark worlds and a lot of world building, a lot of magic and stuff like that. And I just kind of wanted to explore something else. I've always been an avid sci-fi fantasy reader, both sides of that genre. And I just kind of wanted to get into the real world and get snarky and, totally different language and different characters. And so that's how Nel Bently was born, with all of her many, many flaws. And so that follows Dr. Nel Bently, who is an archaeologist. And she has this beautiful, pristine site. And she finds out that it is the center of this intergalactic feud. And she's kind of thrown into this world. She's a hard skeptic, doesn't like sci-fi, likes her thrillers, and that's about it. And she's thrown into this really high-tech, higher stakes world and forced to kind of face these things. And it helps that, one of the people who is part of that world is a very cute young woman named Lynn. And that kind of sways her in one direction. So.
Nice. And the upcoming book is which one and when is it coming out? We'll repeat that at
Heretics,
the end. But...
yeah. So Heretics is book 4, and it sort of follows Nell as she comes back to Earth, because spoilers, she leaves Earth, and so she's coming back to Earth, and she realizes that she's a little out of place now. It's her home, but she's changed so much, and it's changed so much in her absence. And she and Lynn and the larger organization are following a killer sound wave, trying to track it and prevent tragedy from happening on Earth. So it actually came out the 8th, which was last Saturday. So yes,
nice. Congratulations!
So very, very excited about it. Thank you.
Big congratulations! Very exciting.
Yeah. So you touched on world building just a bit before, and there's a question I want to ask you, because you write both science fiction and fantasy, and both of those genres are very conducive to world building, especially if your science fiction doesn't follow Earth's path. Mm-hmm. So do you find that building worlds in fantasy is much different than doing so for science fiction, or do you find them relatively the same process?
I think for me they're different. So my sci-fi, at least the beginning of the series, is very much rooted in this world, and I I try to kind of stick to a little bit more of our understanding of physics and, a little bit of the limits of our current technology, mostly because that's Nell's perception. She's from this world. She's from this time period. And I just like to explore a few of those things that are like, oh, well, we're just getting there with our technology. So let's extrapolate. So that is a little bit more like hard research, like I have to make sure like, oh, wait, so if the spaceship is rotating, which way's down with the artificial gravity, like that kind of stuff. Whereas, in my fantasy, though I do like to be realistic in terms of like war and wounds and things like that, with the magic and stuff, I do let myself go a little wild with it, a little bit less research.
So in the fantasy, then, do you put a lot into the magic systems and stuff like that, or you just have it's inherent because it's fantasy? It's magic's kind of an inherent thing with your characters. I know a lot of people divest so much time into explaining all these wild and wonderful reasons why their magic is working, and I just flip the pages going beyond myself if it's too much of an info dump. But a lot of fantasies like that. How about you?
Yeah, so it's actually fairly low magic, at least the current series. I'm definitely going to go back into the Blood of Titans world. So that world does have a little bit lower magic content than a lot of the more like swashbuckling sword and sorcery fantasy does. And the magical powers are a bit more like bloodline related. So, people who are touched by the gods or who are descended from the gods or their creators, they have powers, but for the most part, people are human and don't. So it's a little bit easier, I think, for that reason, because there's not, there aren't a whole lot of laws, there's not, a big cost and benefit thing going on with magic spells. But I do have like the massive like genealogy thing on, I think it's my family tree builder or one of those, with like who's descended from whom and how their powers came to be and things like that. But most of that doesn't actually make it into the book.
No, but it's good for you to know that.
Yes.
That way you're speaking from a point of, you've got a reference point to go, and it just makes your stuff seem more real when you actually go write about it. Now, Christy was saying on Instagram today that we're going to be competing for your time here, so I'm just going to keep on going because she's muted right now. But so when you do your fantasy and science fiction, it's science fiction too, because there's languages involved, especially when you go extraterrestrial. Do you devote a lot of time to languages at all, or do you just, if it's it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, and that's it?
Sort of in between. Because of the lore in my science fiction, the aliens, so to speak, though there are extraterrestrial, beings, a lot of the aliens are actually humans who are descended from people from Earth who have been abducted over the years. So there's a lot of different, Earth languages. And I definitely do, my due diligence with researching those names and those words, trying to be as respectful as possible with that. But for the most part, I kind of lean on because of that, everyone speaks the same language, or at least knows how to speak the same language. And there's a lot of technological advancements too, where, your tablet can help translate and things like that. Because I also wanted to make it a very accessible world, because writing disabled characters is really important to me. So I wanted to also showcase ways that, people who communicate differently can talk to one another, or who can communicate with one another in that way as well. So.
Awesome. So
that's a good point.
Sorry, I'm going to monopolize her right now. I just want to, because we're on this tangent, I had one more question to go about this, and this is something that when I started writing fantasy when I was 17, I was thinking, I'm not going to put different languages, but I want my characters to have different curse words. And so I researched curse words, and I had all these different things from the past and all these magical things. And in the end, I decided, no, I'm not going to do that, because to me, the curse words just didn't sound like they belong to the story, when everything else is just written in common English. And all of a sudden, I just throw this bizarre word out there. But I know a lot of authors do that, and they do it very well, where they incorporate. Like I'm reading Elantris from Brandon Sanderson, and he's all these different religious names in there, and you just get used to them. Do you do that as well, or have you invented your own curse words or special keywords in your books?
I've invented some not, I do have characters who drop the F-bomb occasionally. I think in the first few books, it's only like a handful of times, but then there's a couple characters who are just like off the deep end. But I do make up a few words like, and maybe I'm not actually even making this up. Maybe I like took it from somewhere. I don't know. But, certain words for like, if someone's drunk, they're tossed instead of, like smashed or wasted or whatever, things like that. And I will play with like certain groups of people will say arse instead of the other version, things like that, depending on where they come from. But for the most part, I tried to keep the made up languages and the made up words to the actual races or names or, like proper nouns and things like that. But yeah, I do. One of the projects I'm currently working on, I'm having a lot of fun with just like throwing all the words in there that are totally made up. And that's kind of fun too, because it's just very different from what I'm used to.
We have a great question from Amber Sage in the comments. Hi, Amber. Hope you're doing really well. She asks, do you incorporate your experiences in archaeology into your novels?
Yes, I do, very much so. But not just, not just the actual methodology. I also like to think about, well, when I'm in the field, like how would technology, like if I were on a like foreign planet, how would technology help me do this job? Because it's backbreaking work, and so I like to incorporate things like that. One instance is having the grid map of the site overlaid on your helm, so you can actually see the map as you're looking at the actual site itself, which I think would just be so cool. I'm like Nell with like map nerd. So things like that, that's what I know would make my job easier now. And then also a lot of the anecdotes and the stories that Nell shares are borrowed directly from either my own experience or some of my coworkers' more colorful experiences. But definitely in the first book and in the third book, where you see the most like active archaeology happening, a lot of that is pretty similar, minus the spacesuits.
Sure. Just to switch topics a little bit, so you have been called an advocate and sponsor for those writing with disabilities and a significant advocate for the LGBTQ community. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about how, it's important to you, but how do you go about it in a way that is so natural? It comes across as very natural. So, tell us a little bit about that writing process and your goals.
Sure. So, I am a queer and disabled person myself. So part of that just comes from, I'm writing some of my own experiences or, experiences of people who I'm, friends with. So that's part of it. But I also, at least for me personally, I definitely think that stories that are about those identities are really important. But I like to tell stories that are, that's sort of a side part. It's, casually queer or casually disabled, where, there's this whole storyline going on and the person just happens to be those things. And that's sort of something that I didn't see a lot, growing up as a kid. And, though I didn't have a lot of words for how I was, how I felt, how I thought, I think I really would have benefited from seeing people like me in novels at a younger age. And I think one of the beauties of science fiction and fantasy is you are world building. You are building worlds. You are building places that these types of characters can exist. And, not to say that they don't struggle or anything like that, but you can dream up what you want the world to look like or what you're scared the world might look like. And that's really, I think, really important to me is, building those worlds, but then having them also include people who look like me and who love like me and who think like me.
And for some people, that might be difficult where they want to represent something that they aren't necessarily, but they still want to have good representation and diversity. So how would you recommend going about that for someone who wants to include it but hasn't actually experienced it? How do you do that in a way that works well?
Well, I mean, going back to what I said, I think if you're if you haven't experienced it, maybe save the stories about that, about being that way, for the people who have. But, if you want to write a story that just happens to have a queer character or a disabled character or any sort of marginalized identity that you haven't lived, that experience, definitely start out by just listening to people who have, and as many people as you can, because none of us are a monolith. We're all so wildly different. And, just listening to people, I've learned so much about my, just my own community, but also, people that I never would have known about just from listening to people on Twitter and, various other places online and reading their own words. That gave me a really great basis. And then, once you feel like you're confident enough to actually write that, definitely hire a sensitivity reader. For those marginalizations, it's really important because it's the little things. Like you might, for example, I wrote a deaf character, Ree, in Blood and Mercy, which is part of the Blood of Titans world. And I am not a deaf person, though I know a few words of sign language, and I can imagine like, okay, I'm not going to describe sounds when I'm writing from her perspective. Those are the big things. There's all sorts of little things that you'd never think of. And that's really where that authenticity comes from, and where some of the damage can be done too when, you're writing something that you've never lived. And hiring a sensitivity reader was like the best choice I ever made with that experience.
Yeah, and I think authenticity is exactly the right word. It's those kinds of things that do separate when, you read a piece and you're like, okay, well, this was good. Maybe I enjoyed it for the story or something. But when you really get to feel like how that person would feel, because as you say, if there's a deaf character and you really go into that depth to remember all the things, all the details that matter so much in that person's perspective, that is a whole other story that you're telling. Somebody can really feel what that person feels. It makes all the difference to great fiction. So, I just want to say that you do a fantastic job with that. I can tell that you've worked heavily on it, and it works out so well. It really does.
Thank you. I try.
And I can't remember the other person's name. Richard, I don't know if you can remember, but we had another person on who also writes disabled characters, and she has a woman in a wheelchair on her cover, and she decided, she had originally just had a regular cover with just a person, and then she decided, what, I want to bring this to the forefront, and that girl's going to be in a wheelchair on the cover, and it was really important to her. And her response to a similar question was exactly what yours was. You should probably leave the stories of those, who are marginalized to those who are actually marginalized and have felt what it feels like, and then get a sensitivity reader. It was exactly the same answer. So, it's just so helpful to hear kind of like everybody feels that way who has kind of the place to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to look around. Was it Allegra Piscatori?
Yes, that's it. Yes, that's who she was. Yeah.
And
she's also I think she was disabled as well, and she was writing about a disabled character. So it's just great to hear those kinds of confirmations of how to handle this kind of thing in the most sensitive way, and that also really tells the story. Like I said, truly experiencing it from that character's point of view.
Well, and it's hard, especially there's a lot of discussion online these days about how people are handling experiences that they haven't had, and ways that people are really damaging, certain demographics, and it can be scary. It can be scary, if you're like, well, I think it's important, so I want to include these characters, and it is important to include those characters, but there are ways to do it well, and there are ways to do it, in ways that cause harm. So it's scary. I get it.
So from someone like me, from my point of view, and I want to write these characters, and then I need a sensitivity reader, I would, I have an editor, but I don't think my editing company is going to have sensitivity readers per se. So what would be, for someone like me, what would be the best way for me to find a sensitivity reader in the point of view of the character that I've written, whether it's disability or LGBT?
So, I mean, there are a few of the really big traditional publishers who are starting to have in-house sensitivity readers, but obviously, there are so many different experiences that people can be writing for, and that's not always possible. And also, just because they have one specific person that they think is going to do it right, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the right person for you, or your book. So I've found all of my sensitivity readers via Twitter. I'm more active on there, but there are a lot of different groups and threads or whatever on various social medias that are like designed specifically for that. There's one on Facebook. It's like writing with diversity or something like that. I can't remember. But I just put a call out on Twitter. I just said, "Hey, I'm looking for a sensitivity reader for a deaf perspective. It's epic fantasy," and then I also included a few of the potential trigger warnings. That way someone who didn't want to read, warfare or whatever, or fantasy wasn't their bag, they didn't need to apply. And then I made sure to also say, this is for pay, because there are a lot of people out there like looking for, freebies. But it's like an in-depth content edit to a certain extent. And so it's really important to be paying people, especially marginalized people, for their labor. So that's how I found mine. So.
What would you think would be a fair rate? Is there actually a chart where there's rates for this now? Like, I know when you look for editors, there's content editing, proofreading, all that. There's different price points to what they pay for Word. Is that the same thing with?
I don't know if there's any one like main chart or anything like that, but I've found that it's fairly comparable with the low end of content editing and copy editing, at least with the people who I've worked with, and what I charge myself for when I'm doing sensitivity reads. But it really varies, and it depends, of course, on the length of the manuscript. Most places charge per word, and that's all of ones I've found that's been the case. So. But yeah, I'd say it's pretty comparable to a content edit or a copy edit.
That's interesting.
So do you find it difficult at all to go back and forth between writing science fiction and fantasy? They do have a little bit of course, like a different feel the way you write one. One is a little bit more casual, and one is a little bit more, it has to be more formal, because, it's typically what epic fantasy is, to some degree. Not formal, but a little bit more formality. So is it difficult for you to go back and forth between those, or do you sort of say, now I'm working on fantasy, I can't work on sci-fi, and then I'm working on, like, how do you do it?
I have multiple projects at all times. So right now I have 2 fantasy things that I'm working on, and then I'm working on the 5th Nel Bently book. I try to have it so that they're at different stages, so at least I'm not maybe doing the like super creative discovery writing process of 2 different things at the same time. And like I say that, but that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So I don't find it that difficult. I try to write what I'm most inspired to work on. Obviously, like, deadlines are a thing currently as I'm looking at you. I have a deadline. But no, I do tend to find it actually easier to switch back and forth. If I am stuck on something, whether it's like an actual plot hole, or like I just really don't want to revise, or whatever it is that I'm doing. I do like to have another project that I can switch to, but I also listen to music when I'm working, instrumental music, and so I have certain playlists. I have like a whole Nel playlist, and you can actually find some of them on my website if you're curious about Nel's playlists. But yeah, I think being able to listen to that music kind of helps my brain, like, okay, we're in fantasy mode and we have to be brooding and dramatic, or like, oh, okay, there's lots of explosions, we're in sci-fi mode. So.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I can say I do the exact same kind of thing when I'm going between writing historical fiction and like something futuristic. It has to be a different, feel to the music, and that definitely helps get me in that mindset. So I'm definitely going to check out. I want to see what songs you're listening to when you're writing Nel Bently. That'll be so interesting. Maybe I'll listen while I proofread next time.
Yes.
That would be really pretty cool, actually.
Well, I have the Fugitives playlist, which is book 5. That that's that's been going for a little while. There's lots of synthwave on there and some
I love
instrumental, like epic space, like interstellar style stuff. So
I'm gonna enjoy it. I can already tell. We have similar tastes.
oh, good.
Richard, you listen to some seriously epic music too when you write, right?
I do. I listen to all sorts of things. I can go anywhere from alternative rock to heavy metal to epic sad music, depending on what I'm writing. If I'm writing a very sad scene, or if I'm writing the epilogue, I generally have sad music when I'm writing the epilogue. I don't know if it's sad for me because I'm finishing the book, or because some storylines are wrapping up, especially in the middle books in the series. Like generally, you hopefully end on a happy note when you finally get to the end, whoever still survived. But but books 1 and 2 in a trilogy, generally the ending isn't always happy. They might have resolved what they were trying to fight, but they haven't finished the total battle, and there's more to come. And so generally, I leave it on a bit of a sad note and start the next book. But yeah, no, I have so many different music, and depending on what I'm doing, if I'm doing a big fight scene, then I'll have some heavy metal going on there with a lot of Sabaton and stuff like that. These very instrumental bands, but yeah. But I always have music going, and I generally, with each book I write, I pick one song, and it's always the first song I listen to on my playlist every day as I'm writing that book, and then they'll switch. But
do you pick that song like before you start writing? Like, do you know what that song is, or do you discover it as like?
I discover it, and a lot of times I'll go on YouTube and I'll type in a certain band that I like listening to for the last book, and they always populate on the side all these different bands and songs that you might never have heard before. And I'll spend half an hour to an hour listening to all these different songs. Most of them I won't like, but one will resonate with me, and all of a sudden I'll just listen to it till I'm sick of it. But so yeah. I was just wondering, and I was looking at your fantasy covers, and because I'm a fantasy author, my very first series was all hand painted. So my very first 5 covers were all hand painted by an artist in Italy, and to me, looking at your fantasy covers, they look like they're hand painted. They don't look like they're DAZ created or 3D generated. Is that true?
They're hand painted, but it's digital painting. So definitely
right. For sure.
Hand done, but yeah, digital. Ben Donahue is the artist, and he's fantastic. He actually met him at a Comic-Con before I ever started publishing, and I knew that I sort of wanted to go in that direction, and he was just this like super quiet guy at the table next to us, and I happened to grab his card, and then like maybe like a year later, when I finally took the plunge, I just wrote to him. I'm like, by any chance, have you ever done book covers? He's like, no, but I will. And yeah, I'm super happy. I think he really nailed the atmosphere, and yeah, I just love his style.
So book covers is a whole big topic on its own. You want your covers to meet your genre so that when people look at the cover, they know exactly what you're writing about and stuff like that. Now, do your book covers actually represent a scene in the book, or do your book covers just represent what's going on in the fantasy story in your book?
A little bit of both. It's sort of a stylized version of the scene. It might not be completely accurate, but it's definitely sort of inspired by, I guess, the scene on the cover of Smoke and Rain, it's not quite exactly like that, but that's definitely, something that happens towards the end of the book. And the second one is actually probably the one that's closest to like a real like actual scene that happens in the book, when the character is standing on this mountaintop and he just ignites the entire mountain in flames. So
yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah. Lightning and flames, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love fantasy covers. That's the nice thing about the fantasy genre. I think fantasy genre has the best covers. Just because they can put whatever they want in there. They got the cozy mysteries and different stuff. They have all these different types of covers, and a lot of them are just genre related. They don't even represent what's going on, like a scene in the book. Fantasy covers, I find, and science fiction to a degree, although science fiction is generally a spaceship and a planet.
Yep.
With fantasy, you can just get so creative with all the different characters and beasts and everything else that come in fantasy. So I love fantasy covers. They're works of art for sure.
I was really sad when there was that trend where it's just like the symbol in the center of like a colored or textured background. I don't think it started with George R. R. Martin, but I know like most of his have been redesigned with that style now. And it's like that's cool and all, but I like my pretty pictures with my magic and my, my dragons.
And that's probably why my books don't sell like George R. R. Martin's either, is because I want my covers to be what I want them to be, and I'm not always, on topic with the genre itself. So,
but you probably also finish your books, right? So
yes, I finished. I don't know if I'll ever finish my series, but I'm going to try. Sure.
Sorry, that was mean.
That's a shame. That's a totally another story too. I love his books. I love his stories. I think he's a great writer. But yes, I'm very perturbed that he never finished that.
Yeah, I'm a fan of The Name of the Wind series, and Patrick Rothfuss is like in the same boat with that. Like, come on, man.
Oh, is he? I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
And he hasn't finished it.
The book 3, which is like the final one. There's only 3, and I don't know the reason, but it's fine. The first 2 are fantastic, and
Right.
I'm happy I read them anyways. But yeah,
Painful, definitely painful.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned on your website.
Richard, I'm going to smack you. I need to know. I need to be able to.
I wasn't sure, and I heard you pause there. But you go ahead if you want to. I can wait.
I'll just insert one question here.
We'll give you one.
Just one question. So, no spoilers, of course. But in the latest Nel Bently book, which is called Heretics, and you guys should definitely go check it out, there is a scene, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but there is a really exciting and intense scene at the end that is between Nell and somebody very important to her. And without giving away what happens, I wondered if big scenes that have an emotional bent to them like that, and that can change the course of the series, are exciting for you to write or difficult, sometimes painful. Do you ever have to take a break when you write something like that? How do you feel?
I adore them. So like I love melodrama. I love really intense, like emotional dialogue. I love reunion scenes where like people aren't necessarily super thrilled to see each other, or there's like a lot of baggage there. I just love really intense scenes, and so scenes like that, especially where there are a lot of emotions, and someone might be expecting one outcome and it backfires completely. Those are really, really fun. And part of the way I write, especially, I actually discovered that I was more of a discovery writer with Heretics. I had the whole thing like quote done, and it just wasn't working, and I had to almost trash the whole thing, which was scary because I'd already booked the date with you, and I'm like, crap, how am I going to do this? So yeah, I find that I actually write those scenes first. They might change, but I write those scenes first because they just like rip themselves out of me. And I definitely will like get goosebumps, and there have been a few scenes, especially in the Nel books, that I've actually cried. But yeah, I don't find them difficult at all. I sometimes find that like bridging them difficult, because it's like, no, it's just awesome. We just cut to the scene. It's fine. It'll be great. So.
That's awesome. And Chris, you almost stole my question there, because she almost answered it there. And I saw on your website that the pandemic has transformed you from a plotter to a pantser. And I find that very interesting, because I would think it would be the other way around. I would think a pantser would turn into a plotter, not a plotter turning into a pantser as you continue on with your writing career. Why did the pandemic turn you into a pantser?
I mean, I think part of it was just having the space and time to really focus on my craft. When I'm working full time, which I am right now, writing is squeezed into little pieces. Like I will try and get up early so I can write in the morning, and then I'll write a little bit at the end of the day if I'm not dead completely from work. But having that much time to just focus on my craft and really pay attention to what I was, like my daily schedule in a way that I don't normally have the chance to. I think that was part of it. But then I was trying to like really, really heavily outline, and I realized that sort of with the of structure that COVID brought, that maybe my writing needed a lack of structure, and what I was missing was the deep sort of introspection that comes with when you're first meeting these characters, or first meeting, they are first meeting some of these, situations that they might find themselves in. And I think a lot of it was the introspection and sort of getting to know myself a little bit better, which is always a scary thing. and I realized that maybe I needed to go back to my roots, like when I was writing as a kid, just like sitting on my floor for the entire night, like scribbling wildly. I didn't outline then, and I think I will retain some of the outlining process, mostly in revisions, especially because series, you have to kind of keep track of stuff, and make sure people aren't dying when they're not supposed to, or coming back to life when they're already dead, things like that, unless if you've eaten them too.
Relatively important stuff.
Right. Yeah, yes.
So, I think it's really interesting that you said about the introspective quality that was kind of lost while outlining. And I know that Brandon Sanderson in some of his writing videos has said that outlining is, great because, of course, you have what's already supposed to happen, and you're just kind of writing, sometimes depending on how detailed you get, the in-between parts, But he also has said that it can make for wooden characters, and that some of the revisions can be, it can be difficult to like flesh them out the way they need to be and make them really feel real, so that's one of the downsides he talks about to plotting. So I find it really interesting that, maybe that was that kind of part of the problem, that they were turning out a little bit stilted or wouldn't, or was it just more that you didn't know them well enough?
I think it was a little both. I think, they were turning out stilted because I didn't know them well enough. I've noticed this happened with Alia, my main character in Smoking Rain, and then with Nel and Heretics. Nel is drawn a little bit more directly from, sort of on an extreme level from my more outward characteristics, as far as like the temper and the language and maybe people skills or lack thereof. And I was finding that, I couldn't get in touch with her. I was avoiding getting in touch with her. And I think heavily outlining was sort of a way to avoid getting in touch with her. And I was having a lot of trouble writing Alia too, like very, very early on. And it was because I wasn't ready to go there in my own head with my own feelings. Alia has dissociation because of PTSD. That's something that I struggle with. And it's like, I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go there with myself. Why? Like, how could I go there with my character if I haven't done it? And in Heretics, Nell is facing a lot of isolation and loneliness, despite being surrounded by this whole team of people that she's supposed to be working with and working for. And that's something that was a little too real, I think. And once I, forced myself to acknowledge, like, you're avoiding this because you're feeling this, then I was able to really just dive in and languish in all of the emotions. So.
That is such an important thing to share too, because it can be painful to write these things, especially because a lot of books, even in a small way, reflect the writer. And I think all books do, but they reflect the writer, no matter if it's a character or one scene or a relationship or whatever it is. And exactly as you said, it can be hard if you don't want to deal with something within yourself that needs to be in the book. And I feel like writing is one of those cathartic processes that, sometimes is hard that way, and while you learn about your characters, exactly as you said, you are learning about yourself. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. I feel like a lot of people struggle with that kind of stuff and don't even know how to put it into words.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And I think, like you said, it can be cathartic to discover it, but I think sometimes it's like, well, this character has to overcome this, but I can't even seem to overcome it. So how can they, like, even though they have magical powers or like high tech or whatever it is, like Nell goes to therapy, and it's like that's not something I have access to. But I have to try and sort of figure out what would be helpful for me to hear, and sort of draw from that and some experience that I've had in the past to figure that out. But it's very difficult when you're in it too,
Richard, am I going to cut you off if I ask something?
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
I was just going to show that I see Wanda Janaway pointed. She's an author, and she says she's found this is from before, but she found sensitivity readers on Goodreads. So that's an interesting place to go find them as well. Yeah. So that's good for me.
I'm scared of Goodreads. Goodreads is a scary place. Goodreads is a scary place as an author, but I think, I didn't even know that you could search for them on there, but that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. You're going to find readers there, that's for sure. Sorry, you go ahead, Christy, now.
Okay, I just had one more question for you, V, and that is, you have Amphibian Press, and that is your own press, and so I wanted to ask you about it and how you run it, and I mean that sounds like a whole other level of responsibility, running a whole press. So I definitely want to hear what that's like.
And just before you get going, does that mean you also print your books? Can you print your books through that press?
Yeah, well, not physically, I use print on demand.
Okay. No, when I heard that, I got
that would be super cool. I have taken a couple bookmaking classes, like the bookbinding ones, which are super cool, but that would be very tedious to make all my books that way. Maybe
that would be great to have.
Maybe I'll do a limited edition or something. But no, I started in Amphibian partially because I had done some of the traditional publishing querying processes, and this at the time the stories I wanted to tell weren't as accepted or mainstream as they are now, which I'm loving that they are now. It's really great. But yeah, I decided to sort of do the indie press thing, and I started it with a business partner that we've since parted ways. But I really love being able to have not just the control, but be involved in each process. And I also really enjoy learning about each process. I love, I'm a hands-on learner, and I love when I don't understand something, being able to just deep dive into it and teach myself it. And I've done that with cover design, with formatting, pretty much every level of the process, like HTML coding for websites, things like that. And it's been really, really fun. But it definitely got super overwhelming. A little bit before the pandemic, I was dealing with a lot of family stuff at home, and I just got super overwhelmed. Just sort of why we kind of switched formats recently to more of a cooperative, which I also think that reflects a little bit more of my values. There's a lot of weird gatekeepy stuff that happens with the publishing industry, and so I really enjoyed being able to just let's all be on the same page here. I work with another author team, O.E. Tierman, and so we do their books as well, and it's been really rewarding and really fun, and just being able to learn and be involved in the community on this other level, not just as an author, but as someone who does sensitivity reading and formatting and editing and things like that. It's been really, really great.
That's really cool. I know that it is really interesting learning that stuff, but some of it is difficult and not as much fun, even once you learn it. What would you say is your least favorite part of the process? Is it formatting, or which one is it?
The actual book production process is probably trying to get all of the pieces in a row for launch, because there's inevitably something that gets screwed up. Dealing with Amazon is probably number one least favorite thing. Definitely, but yeah, it's mostly that. It's mostly the background, oh right, there's that one little little fiddly thing. Switching website hosts was an absolute nightmare. I had to redesign the website from scratch twice, and that was awful. I like designing websites. I like playing with that, but I don't want to do it many times.
I can just imagine the level of stress involved in that. It's I can only do the basic types of stuff. I couldn't do what you did. That's amazing.
There were a lot of very strong words being used. So.
Well blessed, yeah, for sure. So
Yep.
I'm just conscious of the time now, and then we'd like to probably wrap it up here. But before we do, where can people find your books if they're looking for them? Obviously, everyone has them on Amazon. I would imagine you do as well. Where else? Are you exclusive to Amazon? Or do you have them all over?
I'm currently exclusive with Amazon. I sort of did a business redesign recently. So all the Nel Bently books are available via Kindle Unlimited, as well as the Blood of Titan series. You can grab Disciples, which is a little prequel to the Nel Bently books. It sort of follows the events leading up to Travelers, but through Lynn's perspective, who's the love interest. And you can find that on Amazon, on all of the other like Draft Digital, all of those. But you can also grab it for free on my website if you want to sort of see if my work is for you. That's one place. And then you can buy paperbacks, Amazon through Ingram. You can order them through your local indie bookstore because we like to support the indie bookstores. You can do that. And then you can also buy a signed copy direct from the Amphibian Press website. So.
Awesome. So thank you for being with us today. We really enjoyed talking to you. And then just before we go, Christy, do you have any announcements? You mentioned you wanted to mention something.
Yeah, I just have one sort of, well, it's not a mini announcement to me, but it's, I've been mentioning on my social media and stuff like that I've been working on a nanopunk novella, and this has been going on for a little while now as I have the time to work on it. And I finally finished the draft that I was doing. So I had the first draft, it was a mess. And then I did the second draft with all the rewrites, and that is complete. So the book is totally finished. I'm just, doing some editing. I'm super excited. It's something so different from me, right? Historical fiction. So this is futuristic. If you don't know what nanopunk is, it's basically cyberpunk with nanobots. So, sci-fi futuristic tech stuff. But mostly, as with all my things, character driven. So that will be a series, and I'm just really excited that I finally finished writing this thing. It's just super exciting for me. So that's my big announcement for this week. How about you, Richard? Do you have anything?
Yeah, no, I have a live read coming up this Friday, and I apologize to Tim Connolly, who did it from last week, and about 25 minutes into it, I had internet breakdown, and I just couldn't finish the live read. So I promised him I'd do them again. And it's, speaking about disabilities, Tim has cerebral palsy, and he's written a memoir about his life up to this point, and especially about a significant, I guess she'd be a young woman at the time who really helped him through university and stuff, and helped shape who he became. And it's very sad at the end with what happened to her. But so I'm going to honor him and do it again this week, and hopefully my internet will hold out. And if anyone wants to watch it, you can find it on my regular webpage. I don't like my author Facebook page because I find it so slow and clunky. I don't know if that's the same with you guys too, but the business author page, it just takes so long to do anything, and I don't get much uptake out of it. Whereas just my regular personal page, everything just seems to run smoother. So I always run it through it. It's richard.stevens.39. I don't know where the 39 came from, but you can find me. I've got a little dragon's eye. It's a green dragon's eye. That's my icon. So if you want to pay attention to that live read on Friday, it's happening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I always go live at 7 o'clock, and then I'll live edit what I wrote this week. So that's it for me. And so next week, our guest is join us next week as we speak to Kate Tilton. She works with authors to help them find clarity and to make plans for publishing marketing. In her own words, Kate has been helping authors of all stripes navigate the publishing world and connect with readers. She loves cats, tea, and all geeky things. So this sounds like it should be a very interesting episode that you don't want to miss. So until next Tuesday, thank you again to VS Holmes for being with us tonight. And Christy and I would like to thank everyone for stopping by. Have an amazing evening. Take care.